everyone, it's Miss Carla from the Elanco Library. I hope you guys are doing well. I usually wear my mask, but I'm going to be taking it off because I'm going to be talking a lot, right? So this is Classics with Carla. This is actually going to be our second to last Classics with Carla video, which is kind of wild, right? Because I've been doing this since March, maybe? I forget. So, yes. So our last one will be September 14th, and then starting September 16th on Wednesdays throughout September, we are going to be doing something called Crocheting with Carla. So I really like crocheting, and I'm hoping to share more things that I enjoy, and hopefully you guys will enjoy too. Alright, so yes, we are still reading Anne of Green Gables. We are almost done. This is our second to last chapter. Just so you guys know, this chapter is about death. So if you're uncomfortable with that, please go ahead and skip this chapter. Yeah, that's pretty much all I have to say about that. So we're going to continue on. So we are on chapter 37. We're only reading one chapter today. The Reaper, whose name is Death. Matthew, what's the matter? Matthew, are you sick? It was Marilla who spoke, alarm in every jerky word, and Anne came through the hall, her hands full of white flowers. It was long before Anne could love the sight or odor of the white flowers again. In time to hear her and to see Matthew standing in the porch doorway, a folded paper in his hand and his face strangely drawn and gray. Anne dropped her flowers and sprang across the kitchen to him at the same moment as Marilla, and they were both too late. Before they could reach him, Matthew had fallen across the threshold. He's fainted, gasped Marilla. Anne, run for Martin! Quick, he's at the barn! Martin, the hired man who had just driven home from the post office, started at once for the doctor, calling at Orchard Slope on his way to send Mr. and Mrs. Barry over. Miss Lind, who was there on an errand, came too. They found Anne and Marilla distractedly trying to restore Matthew to consciousness. Miss Lind pushed him gently aside, tried his pulse, and then laid her ear over his heart. He looked at their anxious faces sorrowfully, and tears came into her eyes. Oh, Marilla, she said gravely, I don't think we can do anything for him. Miss Lind, you can't think Matthew is... And Anne could not say the dreadful word. She turned sick. Child, yes, I'm afraid of it. Look at his face. When you've seen that look as often as I have, you'll know what that means. Anne looked at the still face, and there beheld the seal of the great presence. When the doctor came, he said that death had been instantaneous and probably painless, caused in all likelihood by some sudden shock. The secret of the shock was discovered to be in the paper Matthew had held and which Martin had brought from the office that morning. It contained an account of the failure of the Abbey Bank. News spread quickly through Avonlea, and all day friends and neighbors thronged Green Gables and came and went on errands of kindness for the dead and living. For the first time, shy, quiet Matthew Cuthbert was a person of central importance. The white majesty of death had fallen on him and set him apart as one crowned. When the calm night came softly over Green Gables, the old house was hushed and tranquil. In the parlor lay Matthew Cuthbert in his coffin, his long gray hair framing his placid face, on which there was a little kindly smile as if he slept, dreaming pleasant dreams. There were flowers about him, sweet old-fashioned flowers which his mother had planted in the homestead garden in her bridal days, and for which Matthew always had a secret, wordless love. Anne had gathered them and brought them to him, her anguished, tearless eyes burning in her white face. It was the last thing she could do for him. The Barrys and Miss Lind stayed with them that night. Deanna, going to the east gable, where Anne was sitting at her window, said gently, Anne, dear, would you like to have me sleep with you tonight? Thank you, Deanna. Anne looked earnestly into her friend's face. I think you won't misunderstand me when I say that I want to be alone. I'm not afraid. I haven't been alone 1 minute since it happened, and I want to be. I want to be quite silent and quiet and try to realize it. I can't realize it. Half the time it seems to me that Matthew can't be dead, and the other half it seems as if he must have been dead for a long time, and I've had this horrible, dull ache ever since. Deanna did not quite understand. Marilla's impassioned grief, breaking all the bounds of natural reserve and lifelong habit in its stormy rush, she could comprehend better than Anne's tearless agony. But she went away kindly, leaving Anne alone to keep her first vigil with sorrow. Anne had hoped that tears would come in solitude. It seemed to her a terrible thing that she could not shed a tear for Matthew, whom she had loved so much and who had been so kind to her. Matthew, who had walked with her last evening at sunset and was now lying in the dim room below with the awful peace on his brow. But no tears came at first, even when she knelt by her window in darkness and prayed, looking up to the stars beyond the hills. No tears, only the same horrible, dull ache of misery that kept on aching until she fell asleep, worn out with the day's pain and excitement. In the night she awakened with the stillness and darkness about her. The recollection of the day came over her like a wave of sorrow. She could see Matthew's smiling face at her as he had smiled when they had parted at the gate that last evening. She could hear his voice saying, my girl that I'm proud of." Then the tears came, and Anna wept her heart out. Marilla heard her and crept in to comfort her. There, don't cry so, dearie. It can't bring him back. It isn't right to cry so. I knew that today, but I couldn't help it then. He'd always been such a good, kind brother to me. But God knows best. "Oh, just let me cry, Marilla," sobbed Anne. "The tears don't hurt me like the ache did. Stay here for a little while with me and keep your arm around me." "I couldn't have Deanna stay. She's kind and good and sweet, but it's not her sorrow. She's outside of it, and she couldn't come close enough to my heart to help me. It's our sorrow, yours and mine. Oh, Marilla, what will we do without him?" "We've got each other, Anne. I don't know what I'd do if you weren't here, if you never came." "Oh, Anne, I know I've been kind of strict and harsh with you maybe, but you mustn't think I didn't love you as much as Matthew did. I want to tell you now, and I can. It's never been easy for me to say things out of my heart, but at times like this it's easier. I love you as dear as if you were my own flesh and blood, and you've been my joy and comfort ever since you came to Green Gables." 2 days afterwards, they carried Matthew Cuthbert over his homestead threshold and away from the fields he had tilled and the orchards he had loved and the trees he had planted. And then Avonlea settled back to its usual placidity, and even at Green Gables affairs slipped into their old groove, and work was done and duties fulfilled with regularity as before, although always with the aching sense of loss in all familiar things. Anne, new to grief, thought it was almost sad that it could be so, that they could go on without Matthew. She felt something like shame and remorse when she discovered that the sunrises beyond the firs and the pale pink buds opening the garden gave her the olden rush of gladness when she saw them. That Deanna's visits were pleasant to her, and that Deanna's merry words and ways moved her to laughter and smiles. And in brief, the beautiful world of blossom and love and friendship had lost none of its power to please her fancy and thrill her heart, that life still called to her with many insistent voices. "It seems like disloyalty to Matthew somehow to find pleasure in these things now that he is gone," she said wistfully to Miss Ellen one evening when they were together in the manse garden. "I miss him so much. All the time, and yet, Miss Allen, the world and life seem very beautiful and interesting to me for all. Today Deanna said something funny, and I found myself laughing. I thought when it happened I could never laugh again, and it somehow seems if I oughtn't to. When Matthew was here, he liked to hear you laugh, and he liked to know that you found pleasure in the pleasant things around you," said Miss Allen gently. "He is just away now, and he likes to know it just the same. I'm sure we should not shut out our hearts against the healing influences that nature offers us, but I understand your feeling. I think we all experience the same thing. We resent the thought that anything can please us when someone we love is no longer here to share the pleasure with us. And we almost feel as if we were unfaithful to our sorrow when we found our interest in life returning to us. I was down to the graveyard to plant a rose bush on Matthew's grave this morning," said Anne dreamily. "I took a slip of the little white Scotch rose bush his mother brought out from Scotland long ago. Matthew always liked those roses the best. They were so small and sweet on their thorny stems. It made me feel glad that I could plant it by his grave, as if I were doing something that must please him in taking it there to be near him. I hope he has roses like them in heaven. Perhaps the souls of those little white roses that he loved so many summers were all there to meet him. I must go home now. Marilla is all alone, and she gets lonely at twilight." "She will be lonelier still, I fear, when you go away again to college," said Miss Allen. Anne did not reply. She said good night and went slowly to Green Gables. Marilla, who was sitting on the front doorsteps, and Anne sat right down beside her. The door was open behind them, held back by a big pink conch shell with hints of sea sunsets in its smooth inner convolutions. Anne gathered some sprays of pale yellow honeysuckle and put them in her hair. She liked the delicious hint of fragrance and the some as of some aerial benediction above her every time she moved. Dr. Spencer was here while you were away, Marilla said. He says that the specialist will be in town tomorrow, and he insists that I must go in and have my eyes examined. I suppose I'd better go and have it over. I'll be more than thankful if the man can give me the right kind of glasses to suit my eyes. You won't mind staying here alone while I'm away, will you? Martin won't have to drive me in, and there's ironing and baking to do. I shall be all right. Deanna will come over for company for me. I shall attend to the ironing and baking beautifully. You needn't fear that I'll starch the handkerchiefs or flavor the cake with lemon in it. Marilla laughed. What a girl you were for making mistakes in them days, Anne. You're always getting into scrapes. I did used to think you were possessed. Do you mind that time you dyed your hair? Yes, indeed. I shall never forget it, smiled Anne, touching the heavy braid of hair that was wound about her shapely head. I laugh a little now sometimes when I think what a worry my hair used to be to me, but I don't laugh much because it was a very real trouble then. I did suffer terribly over my hair and my freckles. My freckles are really gone, and people are nice enough to tell me my hair is auburn now, all but Josie Pye. She informed me yesterday that she really thought it was redder than ever, or at least my black dress made it look redder. And she asked me if people who had red hair ever got used to having it. Marilla, I've almost decided to give up trying to like Josie Pye. I made what I would once have called a heroic effort to like her, but Josie Pye won't be like. Josie is a pie, said Marilla sharply, so she can't help but being disagreeable. I suppose people of that kind serve some useful purpose in society, but I must say I don't know what it is any more than I know the use of thistles. Is Josie going to teach? No, she's going back to Queens next year, so are Moody Spurgeon and Charlie Sloane. Jane and Ruby are going to teach, and they both got schools. Jane at Newbridge and Ruby at someplace up west. Gilbert Blythe is going to teach too, isn't he? Yes. What a nice-looking young fellow he is, said Marilla absently. I saw him in church last Sunday, and he seems so tall and manly. He looks a lot like his father did at the same age. John Blythe was a nice boy. We used to be real good friends, he and I. People would call him my boo. Anne looked up with swift interest. Oh, Marilla, and what happened? You didn't... We had a fight. I wouldn't forgive him when he asked me to. I meant to after a while, but I was sulky and angry, and I wanted to punish him first. And he never came back. The Blythes were all mighty independent. But I always felt rather sorry. I've always kind of wished I'd forgiven him when I had the chance. So you've had a bit of romance in your life too, said Anne softly. Yes, I suppose you might call it that. You wouldn't think so to look at me, would you? But you never can tell people from their outsides. Everybody has forgot about me and John. I'd forgotten myself, but it all came back to me when I saw Gilbert last Sunday. And that is the end of chapter 37. So we are at the second to last chapter. So yeah. All right. I'm glad you decided to spend this time with me. I can't believe we're almost over, like I mentioned before. I feel like I've been reading Anne of Gables forever, but I do like this story. It is a cute story. I'll probably get the other books on tape, audiobooks or on CDs, just to finish out. It's a cute story, so I do enjoy it. Anne is a real treat. All right, guys. So, like I said, I'm glad you decided to spend this time with me. All programs are virtual until further notice, so please check out our website for all of our events. We're also teaming up with Adamstown Area Library to offer more virtual events for you guys. All right, guys, stay safe, and I'll see you guys later. Bye.